Hello everyone and welcome to another weather scrapbooking project. This is the collaboration that I'm doing with Julie Carriere in Canada, and we are both collaborating with this and scrapbooking our monthly layouts using the weather temperature blanket method but in scrapbooking form. This month I've decided to go down the paper pattern path. My colours for this month were shortbread, toffee and avocado. So I'm heading into a milder sort of climate and I really like this colour palette, and what I decided to do was pick some pattern papers. I printed off the sketch after I'd filled it all from Design Space, and I've written here whether or not I need to use the light side or the dark side of the paper, and that's what led me to bringing in the pattern paper, because you can see here I've got a whole block of avocado in light, a block of toffee. It happens again here, there's a lot of avocado even though it goes light, dark, and a whole heap of dark toffee. So I thought instead of stamping on all of these tags that I have put on the layout, and this is a 2-page spread, I've decided to go down the path of pattern paper. And how I'm doing that is when it's a light side of avocado, I'm using the avocado patterns that have a light marking on them. When it's a light side of toffee, I'm using these two pattern papers because they've got a toffee pattern, but they've got a light feature to them with the colour in the background. The shortbread, I didn't actually have any pattern paper with this apart from a brand new pack of the Good Vibes, and I didn't want to cut that up for this because I have other plans for it. So I looked through my stash and pretty much all of these papers are from my stash. You can see some old Serenity. This one is the In Full Bloom papers, and it's got the avocado stripe on the other side. Some are mix-ins. And for shortbread, I had a look through. I store all my pattern papers color-coded in rainbow order. So I had a look through them, and I think this one here has those tones of shortbread. So for me, that is close enough. And then for the toffee patterns that are the dark that I need to use, I have decided to use these two patterns here. So I went ahead and I cut all my tags out of all the different patterns, and then when I was laying them all out on the page, I found there was just a little bit too much of a contrast. So I'm going to do some treatments. I've gone ahead and put my pages together, and I'm going to show you those in a moment, but I want to show you how I treated those and also talk to you about the month title. If you've been following along with the project so far this year, you know that we have been using month titles. I've been using the one with the swirly edge, and Julie has been cutting out and offering her ones as well as part of a giveaway, and they're two different fonts that we've been using. But Cricut have done quite a few updates, and currently I'm not able to share the file with this in here. So at the end of this video, I am going to go and show you how to create this in Design Space yourself and how to get the overlay part. So if you want to see how that is done, I'm going to share my screen and go through the process of welding all this together and slicing it so you get the overlay feature. The first thing that I did with all of these is just quickly run ink around all of the edges of the tags. So I'm giving it a little bit of a distressed look, but I'm not using any brushes. I thought that just by doing this, that would be enough of a feature between all of the pieces of pattern paper. So I'm going around the edges with the respective ink pad color. So avocado for the avocado tag, and toffee for the toffee tags, and shortbread for the shortbread tags. And when I did that, I decided I really liked that, but then I went a step further, and I'll show you my page and how I've had to keep evolving what I've been doing. So I decided that I wanted to put a little bit more distressing on here. So I'm just dragging this through. I'm not worried about making it all actually even. I'm just dragging my piece of cardstock through until I get a bit of a pattern. Now all of these have been cut at the size that is on Cricut, because as you can see from the layout, they're going up and down here, but we have to trim this section off to give it a nice straight top and bottom edge. But unlike Julie, I didn't trim mine off the page. I actually fussed around with them. So I'll show you what I did with that. So you can see I've got some of the avocado ink coming on here, but I'm going to show you on this darker side one what I've done to tone all of these down a little bit. So it's just a case of, instead of picking up your ink pad and swiping it across your piece of paper where you get a heavier transference of ink, you just pick up your paper and gently swipe it across like that. So that's all I did for all of the tags. So when I laid all of these out onto my page, I actually decided to go one step further with this and tone these down a little bit. I'll bring in the left page for you to have a look at now, and you can see just by looking at this that that is quite a bright colour compared to what I actually have on the page. So I'm going to show you the next treatment that I did for this in just a moment. I'm going to set that aside to dry a little bit while I talk about my layout here. And I'm not going to go through the whole construction of this, because you can have a look at Julie's video and she takes you through how she put everything together. I'm just going to talk you through it because, as I said, I want to give you a little Cricut tutorial and I don't want to make the video too long. The first thing I did was lay out all of my photos, and you can see here I've got flip flaps on all of these, and this one's a double flip flap, and all my journaling is going to be hidden underneath, and it's going to relate to the stories behind each of these days or weekend. Got to go on a weekend retreat, and this is about Easter. And we have rainbow lorikeets that are coming into the backyard, and we had a birthday in the family. So all of the journaling for each of these is going to go on these little hidden journal boxes that I've got here. And I've used the tabs thin cut, specifically this one here, and you get a score line in the middle, so it cuts the whole outside, and when you flip it over you've got the tab on the other side. And I've run the edges of this tab through the shortbread ink as well, so it will match in. I've got my April title, and I decided, because I had these gorgeous rainbow lorikeets and they've become quite friendly, they're not actually flying away when we go outside to have a look at them. I can stand right underneath the tree and take photos of them, which is pretty cool. So these are why I decided to put the little birds on this layout. And I've also cut out the leaf design with Cricut, and it's 2 layers here. So that's actually sage leaves and then toffee on top. And what I've done is use from National Scrapbooking Day, there's a bundle that has these circles and patterns set within it. The circles are all die cuts, but I've used the patterns to stamp over the leaves and the branches. So you can see this design here, I've done tone on tone stamping with sage, and I've alternated these between dark side and light side as well, and just stamped these little chevron type markings, which I thought were quite good for leaves. And I've actually also done stamping on this very fine part of the branch. So I've used these stripes just to give a little bit of added texture to those. I'm hoping you can see that on the camera. You might be able to see it better. I'll put some still shots up at the end of the video, but you can see that gives just a little bit of texture without having to get out the sponge daubers and ink everything. I just thought I would like to use these 2 stamp sets to add a little bit more variety to these Cricut cuts. I do love putting the little tabs on the flip flaps. It just lets people know that there is more to this story than what is actually shown on the 12 by 12 page. And I actually sliced through my page protectors, so when I put this in, these will be sitting on top with a slit through the page protector, so I can feed this through the page protector, and then it all sits nice and flat and the journaling will be underneath. So now that I've talked through this layout, I'm going to show you what I did to actually tone down these 2 very strong colors, and I did this to every single piece on this layout. So every single one of these has that ink swiping on the side and then dragging them through the ink pad red, but then I decided to tone it down just a little bit more because they were quite bold with the patterns. So for that, I used White Daisy, a blending tool, and some paper towel. Now you can do this directly onto your all-purpose mat. I find White Daisy to be quite a messy type thing, so I'm actually just bringing in some scratch paper. I'm going to ink this up, tap it off, and then drag it over my tag. And you might be thinking that I'm losing all of the detail and the pattern. But then I can bring in my paper towel and I can buff it off just a little bit and take some of that ink off. And that still gives me the pattern of the paper. I still get the toffee look because I haven't inked up the whole entire lot. And I can go, I don't necessarily have to ink this up every single time. And I'm not doing this to any particular method at all other than just putting the ink onto the tag and then buffing it off a little bit. Now with White Daisy, it is a very wet pigment ink. So what you need to do if you decide to go down this path with using White Daisy to tone down a strong colour or a pattern is set them aside to dry. And I would advise that if you're going to do this, do a big dry fit first. Make sure that you're happy with what you've done before you stick everything down like me and then have to go in after the fact and do all the ink distressing. It can be done, but it's a little bit fiddly, and with white pigment ink you don't want to get it onto your photos or other parts that you don't necessarily want the ink on. The other thing that I did a bit differently from Julie when I was putting things together, I went through and put the tags down, and when I decided that this was the height that I needed, I would just eyeball it, trim this bit off with my trimmer, ink that up with avocado and put that on my 12-inch page. Just wanted to make sure that I had everything at the right height. I did start at the outside edges and build my way into the middle just like she did. And because I used the Design Space file, all of the tags had circle tag toppers. So I went through my huge stash of sequins and found some different coloured ones that fitted in with the toffee and the avocado. There's a bit of a bronzy sort of colour. I have no idea where these are from. I think I've had them for years and years, but I do like how they finish off the tags and just add a little bit of extra something. So that's my talk through of how I've put these pages together, and then also how I tried to rescue my layout after I'd stuck everything down and looked at it and decided that I really didn't particularly love the strong colours that were coming through from all these pattern papers. I'll put some still shots up of this at the end of the video, but if you'd like to stay tuned, I'm going to take you off to Design Space now and show you how to create an overlay title. Design Space, and I'm just going to put the word April onto the page. You can see it's already coming up with the text because I've already selected it. So to find the fonts, if you've put them onto your computer, the ones we're using are the KG, Beneath Your Beautiful Chunk, and also Strawberry Limeade. So let me start with Beneath Your Beautiful Chunk. I've actually changed the A from a capital A to a lowercase a because it looks a little bit better. And now that that's selected, I'm going to make this bigger on the screen so that you can actually see what's going on. You can't change this to a bold font. It's only going to give you the option of regular because it's a font that's already on your computer. But what we're going to do is change this to white so that you can see this a bit better when I use the offset button. So I can drop that down. I know that I want this to be at 0.13 inches. My mouse isn't quite keeping up with what I'm trying to do here. So I want 0.13. I'm going to leave it as a rounded corner and I'm going to press apply. And there we have it. So the base layer is a solid black background and the top layer is still text. Now, when I do something like this, I always duplicate it so I keep my original. I'm going to put that off to the side. I'm going to select the text area, and I've just clicked on it, but you can see on this elements panel off to the right here that I have selected the text. And what I want to do is to cut that away from the black background layer. But I can't do that until I weld all of these pieces together, because at the moment it thinks that it is all individual letters. I'm just going to drag my cursor around it, and then I have this little option down here to slice. And I'll take this part away, and I'm going to delete that. And when I move this part, you can see I've got my overlay section. Now, this does depend on how closely the letters are together. If they are too far apart, you won't get all one piece, but this font comes in quite nicely, just like this. I'm going to remove this text because I know that I've got the correct one. The base layer I want to be white. And then I've got my two pieces, so I can just drag my cursor to pick up both of those, go into the align tool and center them on top of each other. And if I'm doing more work on this project, I can group it together. And you can see on the elements panel here, I've got the background as the white and the slice result with the overlay as the black. If I go into make it, it will load up the mats. I'm going to select this one. This is another new feature. They've been doing a lot of updates lately, and they've got a new card mat out. So now we have to select what mat we're going to use. So I've just selected the regular mat. You can see here that I have the April in the white as my base layer. It's got edit selection, so you can go in here and change which mat you want to do. And then for my black, I've got the overlay section. So if you wanted to change this to the card mat, which is a brand new thing, I don't have one of these. I think you can load up the cards just into specific areas and it will recognize where your cards are placed, so you don't have to worry about placement on the mat. It's all done for you. I'll just run quickly through this again. I'm going to do this with the other text that we've been using, and I know that I want all lowercase, a capital R and an IL. I'm going to go back in. It remembers that I've been searching in the K area, so I'm going to do that. You can see that by doing the capital letter, I get this nice swirly edge piece here. So just quickly, I'm going to change that to white. So I've got my title in here. I'm going to go into the offset. It's remembered what I've got here. It doesn't always remember that. That's something that changes. So if you're doing a specific, I like 0.13. I don't know why. I just like it. It seems to come out at a nice width and everything for doing overlay titles and outlines of things. So if you keep a little notepad to your side so that you remember, especially if you're working on a project, close it down, come back and you can't remember what offset measurement you've been using. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to select both of these copies and duplicate it just in case. And then what I can do is go into this text area. So this is still considered a text box. So I need to weld that together, which is down on the right panel down here. So I've welded that, which basically means it becomes one element on its own. While it's text, it's like 5 different letters on here. I'm going to center this together with the align tools. And then my slice option is available. It wasn't available before because it looked at each individual letter. I'm going to slice this apart, move aside the white layer. I've got my black overlay all ready to place on top of my base layer, which I'm now going to change to white. And you can see that's all going to sit nicely on top of each other, ready to be cut. So that is how I create an outline letter title to put on top of a base layer. So I hope that helps if you've been following along with our weather layouts, how you can use Design Space to create your own overlay titles. If you haven't already watched Julie's April weather layout, I'll put a link to that below, and I'll also put a link to that at the end of the video. There will also be a link below to all the information that you need regarding our weather blanket style scrapbooking layout. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.